Well, good day out there to all of our LCMC supervisors. I'm Kathy Watern, the Executive Director. I know it's been a while since we've talked with all of you, especially during our COVID and our teleworking situation since about the March timeframe. So this is a continuation of my supervisory all calls. We've been doing these for about 4 years now, and we last did one in January. I was down at Tinker Air Force Base. So in this new environment that we're in, I still wanted to continue with our supervisor all call. So we researched, it was going to be hard to do something live and be able to communicate out there to all of you. So we worked with our PA team here and we decided to do a virtual presentation, which you can watch at any time at your leisure during the day. So what I've done today, as you recall, I've done a lot of recent videos on or interviews or presentations from individuals on remarkable leadership as part of our supervisory all call. I've got amazing response, overwhelming response on how much that you enjoy that, hearing from all levels of our leadership and those that want to be leaders in our organization. So what I decided to do, I picked 4 individuals that I wanted to have some one-on-one time with, kind of interviews, I guess, and all 4 of them at different parts in their career. So what I've done is I've done these interviews, I've asked them questions like, what has teleworking been for you? What was it like when you grew up? What did your supervisors do for you? What do you wish you would have known? Have you had good leaders, good mentors? And if you're a supervisor now, how did you get there? And if not, when would you like to be a supervisor? I talked about how good of a job we do at training. I get input all the time on training. Some people love how we train. Others have a lot of feedback for us. So I asked that question. I talked about, as I said, the teleworking experience. Would you like to keep teleworking? And what's your favorite teleworking story? And then I wrap up with one final question. If I could do something for you, what would that be? So with me today, I have Colonel John Gilliland from our Staff Judge Advocate Office, and I have Ms. Sherri Artuso from our Director of Personnel. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through the 4 interviews, and then the 3 of us are going to talk about what we heard from the individuals. And it's something we're not going to necessarily answer all the questions. We'll just kind of banter back and forth. But I want you to take away from these interviews and some things to think about out there as our LCMC leaders. So let me introduce you to who I interviewed before we get started. The first interview will be with Mr. Ben Evans. And Ben is a program manager out at Hill Air Force Base. He works in the digital PEO, and he is in the Aerospace Dominance Division. I first met Ben when he was a PAC Palace Acquire trainee. And Ben had come to us from outside organization. He'd actually worked for a financial broker and Goldman Sachs. And you may have heard me talk about him before. So I've kind of watched Ben in his career. He is a supervisor now, so he's going to talk about his perspective from a fairly new supervisor. The second interview is with Miss Jennifer Brown. And Jennifer is a logistics specialist. She works in the F-15 program office here at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And so Jennifer had an opportunity to shadow me about 1.5 years ago. And there were just so many things that I really liked about her, and she asked good questions, and she really aspires to be a leader some days, which I think she's already leading in her own way. So it's a lot of fun, her interview. As a matter of fact, I've watched it several times because I just had a lot of fun with her that day. And then after Jennifer, we'll go to Miss Kathy Owens. And Kathy is our Chief Personnel Officer up at the 66 Air Base Group at Hanscom Air Force. We talk a lot about, as you can imagine, she works for the group up there and deals with a lot of employee relations, labor relations. She really is our go-to specialist. So I think you'll find her interview particularly insightful on going into this teleworking environment and how she felt her folks were feeling going into that. And then we'll wrap up the interviews with Mr. Chuck Darnell. Chuck is a senior material leader in our Propulsion Directorate, and he is at Tinker Air Force Base. And Chuck has had amazing experience as senior leader, and I see him going forward and doing great things, continue to do great things for the Air Force. So a little bit of our seasoned expert out there, but he'll talk about some things that are on his mind. So with that, please join me as we watch the 4 interviews, and then we'll come back with my team here and talk about what we think we heard. Enjoy. Hey, Ben, how's it going out there?
Doing great. How are you doing, ma'am?
Good, good. Hey, I want to thank you for being a part of my supervisor all calls. And if you remember, I don't know if you've seen any of these before, but we've been doing along the themes of remarkable leadership. So in this session, I wanted to be able to, communicate with all of our supervisors out there. But given our current situation and the ability to go live or be in a big audience, we had some limitations. So I came up with the idea of just recording 4 remarkable people that I had crossed paths with. So I know we want to spend some dialogue today and just get some thoughts, and and I've told you before why you were remarkable to me when we first met. I think it was about September of 18 when I was out at Hill Air Force Base. So, and as you know, we're recording this, and then we're gonna make it available as a podcast. So why don't you go ahead and start out and tell us a little bit about yourself and how did your Air Force journey start?
Sure. So I come from a family of 11. I actually was born in Panama when my dad was on active duty. So we've got 6 girls in my family, 4 boys, including me. And then my wife and I have 4 beautiful children, 2 boys, 2 girls. We're expecting a little girl here in end of July. So pretty excited about that. COVID's made that a little bit more interesting. So my Air Force career, I guess, journey is a little bit of blended story. So I started out in 2002 as an enlisted public affairs troop and joined right after 9/11. Went through college, eventually moved over to ComFlight, and then from there I got commissioned as a health services administrator. And then during that time, I finished up my MBA and took my dream job at Goldman Sachs. And it was quite a steep learning curve, I'll have to say. I learned a lot of great things, worked with a lot of amazing people, really learned a lot about diversity and inclusion there. There's a lot of people from all over the world. I really saw that come, the benefits of that come to light when I worked there. One of the things I noticed, though, while I worked at Goldman Sachs, we worked a lot of hours, of course, a lot of long nights, weekends. I worked holidays, and I'm fine working extra hours, putting my time in. But at the end of the day, I started really kind of doing some internal soul searching. What am I really doing? What benefit am I giving society? And when it comes down to it, it's the business that Goldman Sachs runs is great, and there's nothing wrong with what they do. They provide liquidity to the markets, and my team helped play a role in that. But when I went home and went to bed at night, I kind of felt empty. And so as I started kind of thinking about long-term, what impact I want to make on the world, I really turned back to some of the stuff my dad did at Hill Air Force Base through the Falcon Hill Project. And I really thought, that's something worthwhile pursuing. And so I started kind of putting feelers out, ended up starting through the Palace Acquire program back in February of 2017, and just had a great experience there. And then that's kind of how I ended up here right now.
Oh yeah. So remember, it was your story. I said, how could somebody leave Goldman Sachs? And I think you told me, what was it? You made people millions or something, but it wasn't doing much for you, as you said, from your own personal satisfaction, I guess, commitment to the mission. So I used your story. I told your story to the Secretary of the Air Force because right after the time we had met, we were really focused on our hiring statistics, and we had gone out and we were doing the one-stop shop recruiting. And so I actually told the chief and the secretary your story, and they both found that very enlightening. So that's why I think you got into the remarkable list of mine. But I love your story because it just tells us, where we recruit people from and what they're looking for. And like you, a little bit more, not mid-level because you started as a palace acquirer, but you certainly had some experience. And so I also learned something there just as you were answering that question from a family of 11. So that's pretty amazing. And congratulations on your soon to be born new addition to the family. So let's talk a little bit about, I know you and I had caught up a few months ago. What's your current position? Because from when I first met you, I believe you've graduated from the Palace Acquired program, correct?
Yeah, so I just graduated back in February of 2019. I worked on the Advanced Radar Threat System, Variant 2 and Variant 4, their advanced surface-to-air missile training systems, closed-loop radars that we're planning on using at a lot of the testing ranges to help train fifth-gen aircraft. I just recently actually got promoted to an NHO3 Tier 2, now Tier 0, supervisory lead program manager for the Control and Reporting Center. It's a ground-based tactical C2 system. It's highly mobile. Think of it as kind of like a ground-based AWACS, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Wow, congratulations on your promotion. So you're doing very well. And I forgot to mention that you actually work in Mr. Steve Ward's portfolio, the digital PEO. So yeah.
Yep, that's correct. Yeah, Mr. Ward's awesome.
Yes, absolutely. So so anyway, as I sit here and I think about clearly the director, excuse me, because we're going to cut this right. The trajectory, the career path that you are on right now, you've certainly had some good leaders, good mentors, and supervisors. Tell me what's made them good and how are they helping you along the way?
So I've actually been pleasantly surprised in my short Air Force experience with especially the active duty officers I've had as MLs and SMLs. I think each one of them have been exceptional in their own way. And I think what makes them exceptional is they trust the people that work for them. And I always felt like my leaders had my back, especially when I was doing things that maybe were a little bit more risky, you know, trying to take that challenge from Dr. Roper to take more risk and get acquisitions done faster. I really felt like a lot of those leaders had my back. They were open and transparent. You know, if I ever did need a correction or mentoring, they were happy to give that to me. They were very open. And I think that really, for me, defines a great leader. I think great leaders attract great people to work for them, or they just bring it out of them. It's kind of like a magnet. And one of the things I learned from a great supervisor at Goldman Sachs, actually, is that people don't leave jobs, they leave supervisors. And so I've always kind of taken that to heart, to be the kind of supervisor people want to work for. And I've seen that, and I've tried to model that in my own career so far in the Air Force.
So great feedback on, as you said, the supervisors that you've had, and that they have your back, and that they let you take that risk, I believe. And we hear, you know, a lot of very opposite of what you've said there. So can you give some examples where you felt the supervisors that you had were not the best, and maybe why that was?
Sure. So outside of the government, I had a few supervisors where I kind of shared some hopes and dreams with them, and it ended up kind of biting me in the behind because I ended up losing out on opportunities internally to go on trips or to get extra training because they knew I was transitioning out with another year. And so I think that's one thing that if you're a supervisor, you need to really focus on with your people. What are their hopes and dreams? Maybe they don't want to work for you full time. You know, maybe they have aspirations of doing a different career path inside of the Air Force. And so I think once you help those people get to where they want to go, I think they give feedback to friends around them. Hey, this is someone you want to work for, because even if you don't know, if you're not sure about this job, they'll help you get to where you want to go. And I think that's the only thing I've really seen from some of the supervisors I've had is, you know, kind of some personal self-gain that they had, maybe some other motives they had for their own career, and kind of you know, put me on the back burner sometimes. So
Yeah, I think I've probably experienced a little bit of that myself, but I think sometimes it can be just almost supervisory jealousy or something like that, and that's tough because particularly as a supervisor, maybe coming up the career ranks themselves, and then here they're supposed to grow their workforce, and you know, we've seen a lot of cases where people that had formerly been your supervisor, all of a sudden, they're working for you. I mean, that's just, we've seen that, particularly in the military and things like that. So that's tough. I don't think there's a lot of, it's just being comfortable with yourself and being the fact that you want to see someone else excel in their career. I think that it's not easy for a lot of people. I see a lot of issues with that. So now that you're a supervisor, what did you, once you got this promotion, did you sit down, write some things that you wanted to do or you were going to do with your employees, and how have you been able to do that?
So sure, yeah. So I'll say I've been 3 months on the job. I actually was just given my first person to supervise last week. So during COVID, it's kind of challenging. I've already had some discussions with him, some expectations. I think being a supervisor, you know, I think that that involves being a good leader too, giving them clear expectations, letting them know kind of where you stand on issues, and then, you know, giving them making them feel comfortable that they can come to you with any problems that they have. So I would say I have limited experience as far as a federal civilian. In my military career, though, I do supervise quite a few people and definitely have those sit downs with them right up front, let them kind of know what the expectations are so they can succeed. And you give them the tools and the training that they need to, they'll do well. I think most people want to do well at jobs. I don't think anyone wakes up in the morning and says, hey, I want to do crap at my job today. I think genuinely most people really want to do well. And I think you can bring that out in them if you empower them and give them the tools they need to succeed.
Right, and I see that a lot, just in exchanges or briefings. A lot of times, the employee may be briefing something, and I've seen the supervisor want to take over for them. I mean, that's like rule number one. Try not to do that. You know, let the person continue briefing. Now, when there's a break or something like that, the supervisor can always interject. But I see that a lot. Just you know, let them go. They'll be fine. And, again, that's tough to do. I know when I was early on as a supervisor, a couple surprises. You know, you'd go in for some feedback with someone, or they wanted to come in and discuss maybe a personnel issue with you, and they just totally caught you off guard. You know, and I remember times that's like, oh, what do I do next here? You know, where's my book? What am I supposed to do? But sometimes I think just being a great listener and saying, hey, I may not have the answer that you had hoped I had, but let me work through it with you. Let's see where we can go. You've got to have empathy, and you just got to be their best friend sometimes. I think, you know, that's hard to do, not to be, you know, best friends and do a bunch of things after work or something like that, but just be their best friend at work and be the listening ear. So how do you think we've done on training you as a supervisor? I cannot tell you, that's probably one of the greatest areas of feedback that we get, that we don't have the right supervisor training, or no one ever told me what I was supposed to go do. So how are we doing in that area?
So I signed up for the training unknowingly that it was required by law and that it was 40 hours to do. So right. I guess step number one is set expectations up front, and maybe I didn't read something, I don't know. But so I was able to test out of it based off of some of the supervisory experience that I had. So I haven't gone through all the modules, but I think personally for me, I'd rather have an in-person class, you know, with some really senior leaders to go through, almost like a wing commander's course, where you go through and learn how to, you know, here's some common pitfalls that supervisors or leaders fall into. So I don't know, something more hands-on where you're kind of working with a cohort of people that are new supervisors, I think for me would be my feedback.
Right, you need the supervisory tools for, you know, all the policy, the know-how, the rules and things like that. But then it's also the soft skill stuff. And I'm like you, I like the in-person, but you always need to know where the reference material is so you can go find that when it's needed. So AFMC is working under General Bunch and an initiative to develop a supervisory course. This is something that we'll be fast tracking. We've assigned several of our experts to that. But this is an area I believe we always need to refresh our training. And I do like the in-person too. And hopefully we'll be able to do some of that when we get back to the normal of which we knew. Hopefully we'll be back there someday, which is probably a good segue into how has your experience been teleworking, and particularly in a new supervisor?
Yeah, so I've actually been pleasantly surprised. I started teleworking in March, kind of with the rest of the world. And I was worried about the connection speed, if my Outlook would be going up and down similar to what it does at work. And I was actually pleasantly surprised. We, on my team, were able to get an acquisition pushed through and write requirements documents through Microsoft Teams and collaborate. One of the issues that we've ran into before at work to get projects done is we have limited conference room space. And so I think going virtual actually sped up some of the work we were doing because we're able to collaborate on Teams and set our own timeline and schedule instead of depending on, hey, when's the conference room open? As far as my new team, I actually transitioned in the middle of COVID-19 to my new team. So that was interesting, starting a new job. It's almost like you're starting a job on the radio. You don't get to see the people you're working with. I've had some face-to-face interactions with a few of them, but it's definitely been challenging, I think, to have that, personal connection that I really want to have with all the people on the team. And so that's something I'm looking forward to getting back. Some of the side conversations that you have after meetings or just bumping into people in the hallway and seeing how they're doing. Yeah. I think those are some of the things you virtually miss out on. And yeah, it's definitely, I guess, starting a new team with COVID-19 has been a challenge. I've had to, call more people, do more phone calls. I spend most of my day on the phone and in conference calls, it seems like. And then I spend the hours of the night doing emails. So it's definitely challenging, looking forward to getting back. But I think the secret's out of the bag, to be honest, on telework. As you look over the Air Force infrastructure, there's not enough money in Milcon or O&M to sustain the buildings that we have. They're old and crumbling. I know at Hill Air Force Base, a lot of them still have asbestos in them, and they're still working on getting through some of that stuff. But I think when I worked at Goldman Sachs, they came up with a pretty unique idea of having hot swappable seats. So you had a neighborhood kind of where your team sat in, and you had a basket full of your stuff that locked in a locker, and every day you kind of picked a new seat and sat by someone new. And their theory was that 80% of the workforce would be at work at a given time, so you could actually do with a lot less desk space and office space, and it saved them quite a bit of money. So I think that's something the Air Force probably could look to target after COVID-19. Maybe you knock down some of the buildings and build just a couple of really nice new ones where people can come in for a quick meeting or a couple of days to work and work from home a couple of days. So
I know in a lot of our conversations on facility challenges and where do we go next, our thinking now has been informed through this COVID experience. But maybe not that we will not need buildings or something like that, but like you said, maybe there are teleworking buildings where people come and go, and you may sit at a different floor, a different desk when you're on base working or something like that. We're going to learn a lot from this, and it's exciting going to the future. I think we have learned a lot through this. I'm like you. I spend a lot of time on the phone or in meetings, and then we go to the email. So it is more like a 24/7 at times, but hopefully you're finding some downtime with the family. So which leads me to ask you, what's your favorite teleworking story, or what's been your favorite food during teleworking?
Yeah, great question. So I actually have really enjoyed cooking. I'm sure my wife's enjoyed it as well. So COVID-19, right? I've gained the 19 pounds from COVID, so I'm kind of on my downward slope.
19 pounds?
No, I didn't gain 19, but I gained several pounds more than I should have. I actually learned how to make bread, so that was pretty exciting. I made a few loaves of bread during COVID, and I think that's kind of what helped me get the pounds on. But yeah, I really loved cooking. I think having some connection with home too, go up and eat lunch with the family has been pretty awesome. I think my favorite telework story, I've been thinking about, what unique things have happened. I haven't had anything kind of weird happen on a Zoom call yet, but we did have a call with a contractor, and I had to point it out to him because it was kind of throwing me off. He was walking on a treadmill the entire time on Zoom. So you saw all the other pictures on kind of like the Brady Bunch. And then you saw one guy just walking on a treadmill. But kudos to him for figuring out a way to stay healthy during COVID-19 and also not get distracted. I find myself sometimes trying to multitask on calls. you end up drifting off and doing emails, and then you have to go back to the call and you're trying to remember what they're talking about. So I think those are some experiences I'll remember from COVID-19.
Oh my gosh, that's a great teleworking story. There's a commercial out there or something like that, but yeah, kudos to him for staying healthy. So, well, hopefully with this summer, you can get out there and maybe exercise and work on your COVID excess. So whatever, whatever you need to do. Oh, so Ben, if there's one thing I could do for you, what would it be?
Sure. So I think right now the hot topic for me would be the 346 versus 1101 kind of manning differences. I know Dr. Roper, the PEOs have done a great job of delegating program authorities and milestone decision authorities down to the SMLs and MLs, but that really hasn't followed with kind of the manning mix. And I'm not saying they should have total control over the UMD in their area, but I think there's some imbalance that I've seen at Hill Air Force Base. We've got logistics people running programs. We've got acquisition program managers running programs. And I think from my perspective, getting a better mix and having a little bit more pull locally, where decisions can be made would be something I think would help accelerate some acquisitions. And then to the people running programs that are logistics managers, they do a great job at Hill Air Force Base. I've been really impressed with the people I've interacted with so far. In fact, most of the PMs that I work with are 346 PMs. But I think they are kind of at a disadvantage. Even though they have the experience, there's some classes they're not able to take and certifications they can't get through DAU. And so I think, to be fair to them, I think that's probably something we should look at addressing.
So this is not a new topic to us. It's something that Chris Leak and Lance Conley have been working together, both of our functional lead managers there. And actually out at Hill Air Force Base, I believe the Air Force Audit Agency is working on, they had done an audit on this, and then we're setting up a pilot out there. So please know that we are thinking about this, and this is, it's gonna take us some time. We're waiting to see what OSD does with some of the functional career fields there. But if it were up to me, I think a blended career field, something like that. And so that's where I would like to go. But if I still need your input and your help here and feedback. So let's exchange some emails on that one, because I love hearing from people out in the field and your perspective. So I'll keep you on the call list. How's that?
Sounds great. Yeah, happy to provide feedback. So.
Yeah. Well, Ben, thanks so much for spending some time this afternoon with me. And I'm so excited as I think about the career that you have ahead of you. And you've done a lot of remarkable things already. And I know you're on your way to being one of our top remarkable leaders. So I wish you best, and we'll keep our dialogue. And again, thanks for participating, and thank you for all you're doing. And congratulations on a lot of fronts with the job and the new addition to the family. And I know you're making a difference. So take care and have a good summer out there at Hill Air Force Base. And we'll see you soon. I hope to get back out there again. I love visiting out there, and I do miss that part. So take care, Ben. See ya.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll see you.
Yep. Well, good afternoon. I'm here with Miss Jennifer Brown in our Remarkable Leadership Series. And Jennifer, I selected you. We crossed paths. You shadowed me about a year and a half ago. And even in just the day I spent with you, there were some things that caught my eye about you and some remarkable things that I liked. And I know we've carried on a dialogue back and forth since you first shadowed me. So I'm going to ask you a few things, see how it's going. But first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself and how did your Air Force journey start?
Okay, so hi everybody. My name is Jennifer Brown. I am from the Dayton, Ohio area. I attended school and college here in Dayton, Ohio, and I absolutely love Dayton. My Air Force journey began 10 years ago, and I came in as an A52 in the Configuration Management Intern Program. And the A52 was under the Federal Career Intern Program, and they actually ended that in 2011. And throughout my internship in configuration management, I had the opportunity to work ACAP programs and fighter bomber, ISR, SOF, and tanker directorate, and also an FMS position at AFSAC. Currently now I am in logistics and the fighter bomber directorate. I'm a logistics management specialist in fighter bomber directorate.
So Jennifer, I'd forgotten all those places. Wow, you've had amazing experience. So, and I know you've recently changed jobs. So talk a little bit about your current position. How long have you been there?
In my current position, I've been there a couple months, and it's over in the fighter bomber directorate. And I'm currently working in logistics, which I find is great because it's sustainability and it deals with maintaining the aircraft. And this is a huge aircraft that we work in, an ACAT program that I'm on, and every day it's exciting.
Oh my gosh, that is great. Are you working F-15? I think you told me, or yes. Oh my gosh. Well, that program holds a special place in my heart. So yeah, and that's one of the, it's amazing. Like you said, every day is exciting on a program that's been around a while, but a lot of new things happening over there. So going back to the Section 852, and I know you and I have talked about that. Was that a good program for you? Is that you've had amazing career experience so far? So talk a little bit about that, what you've done in the different positions, and how that's helped get you where you are today.
Well, with the configuration management intern program I came in, it was a 2-year program, and with that program you had so many months to complete your training, such as DAU training that you needed to complete, Defense Acquisition University. And in that, I rotated into the fighter bomber program, the F-16. And that's where I learned the entire acquisition milestone, cradle to grave. Yeah. And we took a program that we worked, and I actually got to see it beginning to end, and attending multiple meetings across the United States, attending many briefings, asked technical reviews, CDR, PDRs, FCA, PCAs, SRRs. I attended I learned the entire acquisition milestone there. And that really did help me in my career. And I also had the opportunity to move to KC-46, the tanker program. And that was the starting milestone C. And it was rushed and very exciting. And they did things a little bit different there. And it's just interesting when you go to different programs, how they're all mission capable and ready, but it's like going into a different company. And it's very exciting. And so over there, I worked configuration management and FMS, and I attended many ASK acquisition strategy panel meetings, configuration management audits, FCA, PCAs, internal, and SRR, PDR type meetings. Yeah. So it was very exciting.
Yeah, I think you hit upon something there. Each of these programs has something unique about them, and they do things different. And I know in my own career, I had to adjust to do that, because sometimes what somebody did, but that's a great way, because you may have learned something on one program and you can bring something a little bit different in the F-15 at where you are now. Right.
And I also wanted to say, when you, again, going back to what I said, when you go to different organizations, it's like working for a different company. And it's amazing, because to work mission ready, capable type activities, to get to a different milestone, and the acquisition milestone is just wow. And to see the leaders and the co-workers that are leaders, the Air Force needs to know about that.
Yeah. By the way, I'm going to sign you up for the recruiting team, because you bring a great message there. So I may call you for another opportunity. You may not want to answer the phone though, right? So, so clearly along the way, Well, you know what I told you. Once you come through my office, I always remember you. So anyway, so you've clearly had some good leaders, good mentors, good supervisors along the way. What made them good?
To me, what made them a good leader is it was many supervisors and coworkers that when I came into a new organization, they provided me the necessary resources. They stayed after work and they set up meetings with me, like one-on-one meetings with me.
Oh, that's great.
To help and teach me to become successful and to help me to complete the mission. And when you have leaders in the organization that are willing to do that and cross-train you, knowing that they have a full-time work schedule, 40 hours or more, that to me undoubtedly deserves high recognition.
Wow.
And those coworkers, we don't see them get awards, but they're there. And they leave a mark with me because I was like, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah.
And they want to achieve, and they believe in we in team instead of I in team. And this is supervisors and coworkers and folks that have worked in the DoD many years, and even some new employees too that have caught on real quick, very sharp and bright. And it was many a days I stayed to work 8:30 p.m., 14-hour days.
Wow. I know you're
Especially preparing for like when you have a PDR, CDR, or TDY, or getting ready to go to a different milestone. Yeah.
I'm like you. That's where I learned, I had great mentors, great leaders, people that's probably like you've had, spent some time with me. And, I just always loved how we pulled together as a team. Actually, you're making me miss those days when I participated on those teams. Nothing like a good milestone to get the mission done.
Yeah.
So, what experiences have you had that maybe aren't so good? Did you learn from those experiences too?
Some of the experiences that I learned that I don't think in the Air Force I didn't have a bad experience in my 10 years that's here.
Great.
Because every time I looked at if it was a negative or positive, I changed it into a positive. And I did whatever I could to succeed. So, and it's not ever a day that I was upset with coming to work, because I'm the type that if it's an answer, I'll try to ask and ask and ask. And I think it's just exciting because I actually got a chance I'm going back to my first program. I worked F-16. I actually got a chance to see the DD-250 of the jet out at Edwards Air Force Base. And it was at 4:30 a.m. in the morning. And to see those jets ferry over was absolutely bone chilling.
Yeah.
And so it made me proud to work for the Air Force.
Oh my gosh. So I've just now moved you to leading recruiting for LCMC. So you were initially on the team, but now you're going to lead the team because you are an amazing spokesperson for us. So are you are you a supervisor now, team lead? Okay.
I'm still currently a GS position.
Okay.
But ma'am, anything you want me.
Yes. So I think that's a goal of yours, correct? And,
yes.
You will have learned from a lot of people along the way. I can't imagine you've got a lot of tools in your own toolbox when that experience happened. So, going back, and you got a lot of on-the-job training from those great mentors, from those great leaders. So do we do a good job at training? I mean, I got a lot of feedback here and people they don't think we do. So what are your thoughts there? The formal training, the courses, things like that. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are the training, again, comes back to, well, first of all, I would like to say the supervisors that are good leaders, they have the open door policy and they're willing to listen, and they have the leader follower type objective. And they are willing to sit down with you and help you complete the mission. To me, that makes you feel great, especially when you're new and scared, to know that you can go into a supervisor's office and actually they're willing to stay after work or before work to help you. That's really great. And then when they're very friendly and assertive and decisive, that helps with the Air Force core values, which is integrity and service before self, and excellence that we do. Now going back to your question, do we do a good job with training? I would say it's a 50-50, because to me, I have learned more on the job with coworkers who are willing to show me than a textbook. Now, Focus Week, I learned a lot too, because you get a lot of experience.
Yes. Good feedback, thank you.
And I attended some women in leadership classes too, and to hear their stories is absolutely amazing. So Focus Week is really a good one, but just to send me to a class for 40 hours, this is just me. I'm not going to learn what I really need to learn by sitting in a meeting and sitting with my supervisor or sitting with my lead, and we actually work this together.
Yeah, that's a great input. That's a great perspective on training. I think sometimes we try to make, we think every course fits everybody, and that's not the way. I think maybe we need to look at how do people learn best, as you describe what works best for you, and then shape our courses like that. And we have to offer a variety of things. And I'm kind of like you. I mean, there's some things that you learn in the classroom or online now, but good feedback on the Focus Week. And as you know, I'm always out there pushing for Focus Week. So I think it is. I'm amazed at what they offer, what we offer during Focus Week. So, well, let's move on to your teleworking experience. And I think you may have changed jobs during teleworking. How has your experience been?
Well, first of all, I would like to say I'm very fortunate that I can work from home, because there's so many people across the U.S. that have lost their jobs and that are unemployed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, in these strange days. Teleworking is very interesting before COVID, because it was for regular or situational arrangements, and it was approved by supervisors. And now we're all teleworking. So the first 2 months, it was the VPN network issue.
Yeah.
If you didn't get on before 8 o'clock in the morning, you were a tough luck. There was many a day I would email my supervisor and said, I've been kicked out of VPN, so I'm going to work 6 to 8 p.m. the last 2 hours to try to make up for the 2 hours that I lost, trying to reconnect and connect. And then we got that to work, and now we're using JRS so we can connect to different bases. So it's been a smooth operation. But for me, I miss facial recognition. I miss getting up, going over to someone's desk and asking a question. Now I have to send an email or leave a voicemail and wait for somebody to call to get an answer. It's different. It's very different.
Yeah, I love it. That's kind of the old-fashioned way, getting up out of your desk. But that's how we get our job done too. I do miss that. Yeah. And
by nature, we're social beings, so we need to be around humans. So to lock us up in our houses, and again, we are quarantined. It can be great for an introvert, but it's difficult for an extrovert.
Yeah, I know. So some good and some not so good. And I know for me, maybe for you, some days were better than others, Maybe it was weather dependent, I looked at it kind of rainy and stuff. I wasn't as good as I could have been or something. So,
but I will say I do like wearing caftans all day.
Yes. Yeah,
those unique robes. And it's just like I don't have to wear work clothes anymore. I can wear caftans, relax, and I don't miss waiting in line in the mornings at the gate.
No, I don't think anybody misses that one. So anyway, maybe we've solved our problem there a bit. But I think we all had our favorite teleworking outfits or but you always look great at work anyway, by the way.
Oh, thank you, Miss.
Yeah. So what's your favorite teleworking story? You have one you want to share?
My favorite teleworking story is kind of embarrassing, but and it happens a lot, I'll be talking and I'm actually on mute. on my phone. So they was like, hello, are you there? Are you there? I'm not there. And then sometimes I take a walk and they cut the grass where I live at. And so it's really, and it ended up being one of those 2-hour meetings. And I'm like, oh, really? You decided to cut the grass today when I have to present. So, yeah.
I've had that same feeling. It's like, why are you mowing the grass?
Yeah. But it is nice to sit on my balcony and work.
There's good and bad. So, we've learned a lot from this, and I think we're going to be better because of it going forward. And so did you have a favorite teleworking food, or what did you eat for lunch, or any story like that you want to share?
I know like Tuesdays is Taco Tuesday. So I would make like tacos and guacamole and dip. And I like to have it on Taco Tuesday, which is Tuesday.
You celebrate Taco Tuesday every Tuesday?
Some Tuesdays, depending on the weather. If it's beautiful, I will, have a Taco Tuesday.
Clearly, we needed to be teleworking over there with you.
Yeah, it's really fun. And then I have a little fiesta music going. And some days I do have my music, a lot of days. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so next Tuesday, if somebody's knocking at your door,
I know it's you.
So, Jennifer, you and I had some great conversations, and the day that I just want to put a shout out to you. I know the day you shouted me, I think we were working through some services contracts, and you had some great inputs and great questions. So clearly we've done a great job at giving you experience, and you've learned from that experience, and it showed. So if I could do one thing for you, what would it be?
So the one thing I would like for you to do, and this is by hard work and success, if there could be more diversity in leadership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know you and I talked about that, and that is something that I think about all the time. And there's a lot of ways that we need to do better here. And I'm thinking about that, and what people with all of their experiences, because we need that in our senior leadership ranks. So I'm thinking about it, and you and I chatted before on some things. You had some great suggestions to me. So can I still call you, because I want to use you to help me with that? And think
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm not going away. And I love how you think, and I love hearing about your career, and you just bring some great perspective. And you have some great look at the diversity of your experience, and you've talked about that. There's a lot of folks that have never had that type of experience that you've had. So I think building upon that is going to take you far. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah. Thanks for being a remarkable person out there, and I look forward to our journey together and continuing with you. And thank you for deciding to participate when we called and reached out to you. So I've learned a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for this wonderful opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm here with Kathy Owens. She is our new Chief of Civilian Personnel for the 66 Air Base Group. And Kathy, I'm interviewing 4 people today. You're one of those. We've crossed paths many times, and just been a remarkable person. This is kind of part of my remarkable leadership series. And so that's why I chose you, and really wanted our supervisors out there to hear from somebody at the wing/group level. I mean, we've always seemed to interview those that work in our acquisition program offices or our functional home offices, but as part of the Air Force's Life Cycle Management Center, what you do at the wing and group level is so important. So that's why I chose you as a remarkable leader. So let's start out, Kathy. Tell me a little bit about yourself, and then really how you found your way to the Air Force.
Yeah, well, thank you for selecting me, ma'am. First off, it's an honor. So I actually began my career at Wright-Patterson. And so I'm a native, I'm a Buckeye, I'm from Ohio. I'm very proud of that. Still have family in the area, so I'm partial to Dayton, Ohio. But I came into federal service in the mid-1980s, and it's a comical story. So I knew that my family, we came from meager means, and so I was going to work my way through school. And I thought, well, you know, I need a job that's got benefits. So I was going through the paper and I said to my dad, oh my goodness, Dad, look at this. Here, you send in $20 and you get a federal job.
What?
And, you know, and I wondered, my dad laughed at me, and, you know, I didn't understand that as a naive teenager. So I got out my $20, sent in my money, and, you know, I got a resume or a application. So filled out a resume and got a clerical position, and thus began my journey.
Oh my gosh. And I forgot to mention up front that, of course, you are at the 66 Air Base Group at Hanscom Air.
Right.
Right, yeah. Hanscom Air Base. I always mess that up there, so we'll fix that. So, yeah. So anyway, Kathy, you're up there at Hanscom. So that's an amazing story. I guess I didn't realize that you had started at Wright-Patterson. I've never heard of the paying $20 and get an application. So,
Did you work? Great. Ad in the paper.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I knew. That's interesting. So talk a little bit about your current position. And I know that you were recently, you're leaving the labor relations, employee relations position and going to the civilian personnel. So talk a little bit about your position, because I think a lot of our supervisors out there may not have an appreciation of all the things that you're responsible for.
Yes, so I'm the Chief of Employee and Labor Relations, and I have just an amazing team, a very small team, and we're charged with assisting supervisors, providing advisory services when they may have a matter that includes performance-based type issues or disciplinary type issues. And of course, you always want to try to rehabilitate employees, and so we try to assist the supervisors in the actions that will do just that. And it can be very complex matters. It can involve things such as poor behaviors, performance issues, reasonable accommodations, and all those things at one time. And those are very difficult for supervisors to navigate. So the team members I have, they do an amazing job. It's an incredible amount of work, and you know, in that business, it's not one and done. A lot of conversations, a lot of difficult conversations on the supervisor's part with the employees, on our part with the supervisors. And so it's complex work, and not work that probably everybody wants to do. But it's a very, very important service that my employees provide to supervisors.
Yes, and I know that role is one, as you discussed, it's, you know, you deal with not only supervisors, but employees too. I mean, you're hearing it from, if there are matters, you're hearing it from both sides. Yeah,
we do.
Areas. Yeah.
Oh, correct. And we always want to make sure employees know their rights, you know, and of course, supervisors honor those rights. And so, you know, a lot can go into working these matters.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get to this area of expertise? So where has your career taken you?
Well, you know, it goes back to that job I was telling you about that I got for $20. So I entered the clerical field at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and met this handsome second lieutenant. And so, yeah, and so he made me a military spouse. And, you know, there were great challenges with that, and my heart goes out to military spouses when they're trying to form a career. But for me, I looked at it as opportunities, and you know, I was able to get experience at base level, at MAGCOMs, different commands, at air staff. And I remember someone telling me once, every day is an interview, and just do the best job you can every single day. No matter the level of your customer. And I took that to heart. And so no matter what the job was, from base to base, wherever we would go, I took whatever it was, I worked my hardest, and I landed in personnel back at Nellis Air Force Base. And I remember thinking, I really like this. I felt I could help people. I felt, learning the regulations, sometimes those could be complex, and I enjoyed that. And so from there, at Eglin Air Force Base, I was in the Air Force Research Labs, and that was a little bit of experience dabbling in everything, the way they have their jobs set up. And so I began to kind of, the job I was in, it did a lot of employee relations and labor work. And so when my husband got orders, his last assignment to Hanscom, I thought, I'm going to apply for the jobs myself. I always like to do that. I just wanted to know I could do it on my own. And that's the job that was open. And so that's how I landed in this particular job at Hanscom. So I had the experience at other places, but this is probably my longest run in a position. Usually it would be 3 to 4 years, and I've been in this one about 8.
Okay, all right. Yeah, you definitely are a true expert in so many ways. So along this journey, it is interesting because you did make a lot of stops. Clearly you had good leaders, good supervisors, good mentors. What made them good?
When I was thinking about that question this week, the one thing that kept coming to mind was consistency. And so I've had a lot of supervisors, and I've had a lot of bad ones and more good ones than the bad. But for those ones that I didn't appreciate, the thing that kept coming to mind was they were different to senior leaders than they were to their staff. And so the job got done and they got accolades. And there were many times I would sit in a crowd and I would look at the employees I supervised and the looks on their faces, and I would cringe because someone was up by a leader getting, praised, but it had come at a very dear price to the people that worked for that person. And so that inconsistency in how people were treated, those are the supervisors I learned a lot from, and I didn't appreciate that. But the good supervisors, they're the ones that were consistent in everything. If they were talking to a senior leader, they talked to those beneath them in the subordinate ranks the very same way, and with the same urgency in solving the employee's matter as they had the urgency for solving whatever a senior leader put in front of them. And, I thought that's the kind of supervisor I want to be. I really wanted to, those people at least made me feel better than I knew I was, and I would do anything for those supervisors.
Yeah, that is a great description there of I think leadership. And, you touched on something that I see in a lot of matters that I deal with, people that look good to the leaders above them, but when it's working directly with their workforce, it's a total different personality, and that is not good. So I loved how you framed that, the consistency, and actually it's just true to yourself and true to your organization and true to your leadership. And I'm not sure I quite can figure that one out, and what drives people to do that. And sometimes I don't think they realize that they're doing it. I think there are blind spots, truly. And I think that's something that all of us as supervisors need to be continuously thinking about. What are our blind spots? Exactly. So now that of course, you've been a supervisor, I think, for a while, or you are currently in your new job, how will you focus? I mean, it's tough being a supervisor, particularly in your area of expertise, because you're dealing with supervisory matters, employee matters. What's your strategy?
Oh boy, I fail at this a lot, but it's to give everyone the attention that they deserve. And so even on those days where I'm dreadfully tired and I've just had 15 very difficult conversations, I try to make that 16th conversation the same as the first one was, with the same energy. And some days you go home very, very exhausted, but you know, I try not to leave anyone at the end of the day feeling that they were shortchanged or that they just have that terrible feeling because maybe I was short or cross and I've just ruined their weekend and I didn't know it. You know, so I try to exhibit those same consistent behaviors in the supervisors that that I've seen in the past.
Yeah, that's great. And if you think about it, a lot of our supervisors across the center, I mean, our days are jam-packed, and just to be able to maintain that same energy, same consistency, and when stuff isn't going so well for us, maybe just other things that we're dealing with outside of the work environment, and then you have to bring that in. And I just, it's a balance. It's literally a balance. And like you said, I love your comment there about just we need to be consistent and we want to have that same energy with employees. And that is so hard to do. Which brings me to another subject I want to talk about. We get a lot of input about our training that we offer, our supervisory training, leadership training. Some of it, folks say, hey, it's okay, but we get a lot of feedback. It's not adequate. So what are your thoughts there and what can we go do?
Yeah, you know, and I feel bad for supervisors when it comes to training, because I think, you know, on my comment about the ones that I didn't appreciate because of the consistency where they didn't treat people the same, I think sometimes it's just because we haven't done training the right way. And training is a really hard one because especially if you talk about those soft people skills. And so I think, you know, this one is one where it's sort of near and dear to my heart. I think we should have a workforce that looks different, thinks different, just is different, and we should champion that because that's how you're your best, through differences. And I think with training, we're going to have to start looking at ways to figure out, okay, well, how do we train people so that they are beginning to think differently and see differently and stretch us. And that's very, very difficult. So I think we need to start breaking down the old traditional models and start rebuilding everything instead of building off of the old traditional models.
Okay. That's kind of what General McMurray has said at times, particularly as we looked at hiring timelines. He said, we always start with what we have, and we sometimes need a clean sheet approach to things, and that can be tough because we live with a lot of policy, a lot of statute, and a lot of guidelines. So I'd love some more thoughts in that area on training. So as you, you know, in your new role up there, let's continue the dialogue because I'm very interested in that.
I'd appreciate that.
Yes. Let's move on to teleworking. So how has that been? And I see you in your sunroom there. How's that been for you and your team? And what have you learned from the experience?
At first, it was a bit difficult for all of us. We really didn't know what to do with ourselves that first week. We didn't know how long it would go on. And so, you know, we were in temporary situations. But then I noticed the more we talked, I began to hear a relaxation in the voices of my employees. And so we started having conversations about that, and the productivity actually went up. We were really getting our cases out, the paperwork was flying, and it was accurate, well thought out, well researched, things that they really didn't have time to do in the office. And I think that, again, going back to letting go of some of the traditional ways we do things and trying to build, you know, off of some new models, it's introduced some opportunities for us where we have the time to research because we're not going to meetings that maybe they didn't need to be meetings, or maybe someone just needed to see us to feel good. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I do notice that all of us have less stress in our voices, and it's refreshing to talk out issues now, and we can talk them out without frustrations, and just a very healthy opportunity for us all.
So Justin, I know some of the cases that you deal with. Do you think it's been, we're getting better results then? As you said, maybe the emotions, because let's face it, in what you do, there's a lot of emotions at times. So maybe it's getting better results across the board.
Oh, yes, I believe so. We've had more time to engage with some of the third parties that we need to engage with, where before, literally, if we were in the office and we're having to run to 5 or 7 different meetings, you know, we're really just juggling those balls as fast as we can. And we still got good outcomes, but I do think that, I feel badly saying this, we were exhausting our workforce.
Oh, that is a valued input. And, you know, we've seen some of that in our DOCs over the course of time. People have said they're totally exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's hard to grasp, you know, well, you're at work, you're doing your job, but I think we're going to learn a lot from this. So what do you think you've learned about yourself in teleworking? What surprised you?
I would say I don't need to see my staff. I had a new appreciation in how much I trust them. I thought that I would need to see them. I thought there would need to be face-to-face, but it's been absolutely refreshing to see what they can do. It was almost giving them a new leash and saying, run with it. And it's just been absolutely amazing.
Oh my gosh, that is a wonderful perspective. Wow, I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah, and I hope others are feeling like you are too. Maybe, you know, and this is one you're familiar with, a lot of teleworking policies. Quite frankly, I think we've always encouraged teleworking, but at all levels there was a lot of apprehension of doing that. So when you had no choice but to do it, I think there's going to be a lot of good things that we've learned from this.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So what's your favorite teleworking story?
Well, that first week, you know, I didn't have it all together with getting out of bed and getting started and having a routine. And I'm hoping many other people can relate to this. But I noticed it was 7 o'clock one night, and I thought, oh, I've got to log on to my church Bible study on Zoom. So I logged on, and I noticed all the women were looking at me very oddly. And one texted me and said, "What are you wearing?" And I still had my pajamas on because I had gotten out of bed, gotten a call, gotten on the computer, and that was the state of affairs for the remainder of the day.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, kind of similar things. I think with where you have a lot of people wear sweats or, you know, just probably something you wouldn't necessarily wear to the office. And before you know it, the days, you're well into the day and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm still in what I started. You know, I never got to change clothes or something. So that's a great story. Do you have a favorite teleworking food?
Spaghetti with meat sauce, leftover.
Oh, that sounds good. That's what you.
One.
Yeah, that sounds good. Did you eat for lunch then, or?
No, today it was cereal.
Oh, today it's cereal. Yeah. Yeah. My husband's eating the same thing every day in teleworking. His turkey sandwich and soup. He eats the same thing every day. But I do. At least it is for some people a little bit more convenient. At least you can go get you know, a beverage or a snack or something.
Right.
Pretty convenient there. So Kathy, if there's one thing I could do for you, what would it be?
Yeah. So before I say that, you know, I'd like to say back on the supervisory discussion, you know, things have changed so much. When I came into the federal service in the mid-1980s, supervisors were just that, supervisors. And I can remember them walking around, sitting down with me. There were discussions, developing training plans within the work center. And then over time, you know, we got all of the really large reductions and reorganizations, and positions were taken. And all of a sudden there was an erosion. And, you know, I feel bad for supervisors today because many of them are doing, they're working supervisors. So the role was sort of reinvented, but we never really said, hey, we see that. And so we've got to still equip you to do all those additional things that you have to do as a supervisor and take care of people really well. And so I think that, you know, the meaningful supervisory training to come up with the new models that will really help supervisors understand the soft skills part of it and to be able to implement it. So I just think reinventing how we help supervisors in a very meaningful way.
Oh, that's great. So I don't know if you or your team, you know, will be working with AFMC. They're going to develop a supervisory course. This comes from the AFMC We Need and a General Bunch initiative. So I hope you or your team, I know we've reached out to the 88th and the 66th to participate, but I love how you're thinking there. Yes.
We'd love to participate.
Yes. Well, I just want to say thank you for being such a remarkable leader up there at Hanscom Air Force Base and for the 66. I know I've learned a lot from you. And when people talk about employee relations, labor relations, your name is always mentioned as one of the experts across the command. So I just want to thank you for all you do, and I wish you the best in your new role up there, but I know you're ready for that. So until we meet again, and hopefully I'll get back up to Hanscom. I do miss getting out there and seeing everybody, and it's been a little while since I've been up to Hanscom. So, but want to get up there and meet your team, and of course you'll have a new commander here at the end of the week.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be great. So again, Kathy, thanks for being a great, remarkable leader and thinking about our supervisors and our employees. That's some of the most valuable work that we do.
Thank you, ma'am. It's been an honor.
Well, good afternoon. We're here with another interview in my remarkable leadership discussions, and I'm here with Mr. Chuck Darnell, who is from our Propulsion Directorate at Tinker Air Force Base. So good afternoon, Chuck. Good to see you out there. So, so in these sessions, I've picked 4 remarkable people that I've met in my own journey, and all of you are at different parts of your career, different locations, different career fields. So Chuck, I wanted to talk with you because you're really one of our most senior SMLs out there, if there's such a thing, because that is a senior material leader, I guess. But you're doing amazing things out there in the Propulsion Directorate. And so I wanted to chat with you about a little bit about how you got to where you are today, and the leaders and the supervisors that got you there. And then we'll talk a little bit about teleworking and things like that. So anyway, Chuck, tell us about a little bit about yourself and how did your Air Force journey start?
Well, my Air Force journey started back in at junior ROTC of all things, back in high school. So in the 80s, I went that date. So I started junior ROTC. My dad was in the military, and that side of the Air Force was a thing for me. I felt it gave me the opportunity to make the difference that I wanted in terms of a career and what I wanted to do for my family and my nation. So that was that put me on the journey. Then I went to college through ROTC, the University of Tennessee. Go Vols!
I forgot you went to Tennessee. You're in General Bunch's camp there. So
yes,
yeah.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And had a great 4 years, graduated there, and then started my Air Force journey as an officer. It's kind of interesting from the point of view. I did Intel, I did ACC, I did PACAF, I did F. So I got to touch a lot of places, all before I came to AFMC. So I was a major by the time I touched AFMC, so I had a pretty robust background in terms of what the Air Force represented at that point. So it very interesting in terms of progression in terms of it. And then as I moved up in terms of AFMC, I got many opportunities to continue on. Wound up at Tinker. Mr. Wall, Colonel Wall at the time, gave me the opportunity to be in propulsion, and then I retired from there and came back as civil service. Got to do multiple things and got the opportunity. Mr. Garcia asked me to come back into propulsion, and that's how I wound as the director in terms of where I'm at today.
Okay, wow. So you've been in a lot of places, and for a lot of people may not know Colonel Wall, that's Mr. Paul Wall, who now is the PEO of Agile Combat Systems. So yeah, it's funny where your journeys take you. And so I think you got in the right line somewhere along the way. So let's talk about your current position, because you have an amazing, really one of our cross-cutting organizations. And as the old saying goes, it's only a static display without the engine. So let's talk about propulsion.
Yes, ma'am. Propulsion, a big shout out to LP in terms of what they do daily. In terms of what LPS does, I'm the sustainment division. We basically make about 30,000 engines go daily. And so the engineers and the logistics and the program managers all are engaged right now as we're talking in terms of safety issues, parts issues, and all the things required for each day for the sound of freedom to reign on every one of the aircraft that are out there. We also support about 43 FMS, so it's not just the USAF jet that we power, but it's our friends and allies as well. So that it covers a lot of ground, and if you're looking for an opportunity to make a difference daily, propulsion is a great place to do it. Every day is a new excitement. If you like problem solving, it's a good place for you.
Yes, that team out there and the team here, because it's really a organization that's located in two different locations. Of course, the directorate is at Tinker, but we also have the group up here, and so that's a good. And I know probably we'll talk a little bit about teleworking and COVID, but your team was probably already doing a lot of that. Chuck, what strikes me about you is just the enthusiasm that you have for your job and the passion. And I know I've had an opportunity to dialogue with you on a couple of recent occasions. And so that's one of the things that to me has been remarkable to me about you. So along the way, and I'm sure you've mentioned, Mr. Wall, but clearly you've had good leaders, good mentors, good supervisors. What made them good?
Probably the best, and I told you I turned towards acquisition late as the major, but when I did go to acquisition, I got to work with some really growing leaders. Just to name a few, Colonel Bolton, Colonel Owens, Colonel Wolfenbarger, all became generals. And particularly like Colonel Wolfenbarger at the time, she was big in collaboration, and she always didn't know what to do, but she relied on the input from everybody. And that was such a telling piece in terms of a growing as a major and moving into the acquisition world, because the work we're doing is so large and encompassing. You do have to rely on the experts just across the board for all that input for the decision making we do. The decision making we do many times life and death decisions in terms of how we impact things. So we don't see it daily, but those play in. But how those leaders worked and organized and framed to get to the decisions, that was something that's stuck with me and long lasting that I even use today.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned Colonel Owens. For me, that was General Owens in F-22, and he will always be one of my top bosses, and I learned a lot from him. And it's interesting about him, if you just digress a bit, if you look at his career, how he went really from maintenance, kind of sustainment, product support, and then in really weapon system production, modernization, development. So I agree. He was a great leader, a great mentor, and a great supervisor to me. So along your career, you probably also encountered leaders, supervisors that maybe were not the best. What went wrong there? What are your thoughts there?
I did experience some. Most of them don't communicate well or had issues with the collaboration piece that I kind of pointed to. And I saw that in how they interface with industry as well as in the interface with other government folks. At the end of the day, we got to move forward, and that's how how do you get to the yes? Becomes very important in terms of how we move forward on. We can't stall because the processes and the parts and the things we need have to be moved every day. So the ones that I've seen that struggled the most are the ones that couldn't overcome the situation and get to the people to move forward past that particular hurdle. And that is a learning experience in itself in terms of watching that. So you have to have the processes and be able to work with people. Not everybody gets the answer they always want, but you have to be able to explain the decisions that you're making so you can actually move forward. And those are the ones that stuck most with me. Sometimes I've been asked to replace those people. And so you want to really learn that lesson as you're taking the seat. You want to reflect on what not to do and how do you move forward. So I think good leaders as well as leaders that have made wrong choices are all learning experiences that we can kind of move towards.
It's funny you talk about collaborating and pulling the team together and moving forward. I remember years ago I did a soft skills leadership course, and we were doing some of what would have been like a Project X or a kind of a course where you can do little events and then compete and get scored. And so we were there, and we couldn't get across a moat or a bridge or something that we needed to, and they were grading us, and they're like, well, where's your leader? And we're like, the leader fell down or sat down back there, and we're going nowhere. And that's just stuck with me about how appropriate that was for real life. I mean, the leader's got to be there and get you through the good times and the bad times. It's not easy. We know that. So I do know that you're a supervisor now, so I'm not going to ask you if you want to be a supervisor, but what are some things that you do to be the best supervisor that you can be?
I think, everybody has different skill sets. The ones I reflect back on are the communication, making sure I'm open to the people in terms of what they need to bring to me. If there's a problem, it doesn't get better with time. So being able to allow your folks to come to you as soon as you can. And then I believe that joint problem solving is important in terms of an organization. One, because it makes people feel empowered. It also grows the next echelon to be ready. So when they have that opportunity as well, and that's some of the things I saw with my mentors, they involve you in that. And then feedback, because every decision that I make is not going to be right. So I want to be able to get the feedback. So if we need to do course corrections in terms of it, that's very important. And that's whether it's organizational, whether it's decisions for the weapons system. I think that same kind of model applies across the board. And I've used it throughout, at least through my AFMC career with great effect.
Oh, wow. Yes. So, I agree as a supervisor, and some days in my last interview, I was talking with Ben, you don't know what's gonna happen when you go in and you're the supervisor. And, a lot of times I've had people waiting at the door. They need to talk with me immediately. And, we've got meetings or briefings or deadlines of our own. And sometimes you just have to put that aside, and you have to be the leader and the supervisor they need you right then. And I think that's a tough thing for a lot of folks. They really don't know how to handle it. They're very mission driven, and yet sometimes you do have to put that aside to work through some things with our employees. That's tough. It's hard to teach that. It's hard. I think you just have to almost learn through the actual situations. So Chuck, a lot of things, we get a lot of input at the center about we don't do a very good job with training our supervisors, keeping them up to speed. What are your thoughts on our training, and what do we need to do better? How can we improve?
The training, I think there is a basis training in terms of how to do a 971, how to keep of the records, which I think is good to have refreshers on, because we all sometimes slip in those regards. So I think there is a basic training that all supervisors need to maintain. I think we're doing that now. I think the OJT piece is the piece that you can't, you just have to do. And it is different because every situation you approach, the different personalities that you're going to work with, it's all different. So you have to learn to basically tackle those, and your skill set's relative to yourself, because what works for me won't work for somebody else in terms of it. So I do think that you have to apply that. So I think there is a growing, in smallness, and then you're going to grow out over time in terms of it. Some people are a little more natural to it, but I think for most of us, it's OJT that really on the job training that we have to have and experience that. I do think that and some of my leaders have given me opportunities to do some of those sessions where we have to debate with the employees, dispute resolutions. I think as leaders, we need to offer that to folks, because I think that is a skill set into itself that we don't practice. So I think as mentors, we need to look for those opportunities and make sure we're kind of not just giving it to the same person, but we're spreading it in terms of making sure we're growing everybody that can work that. But I do think that, especially when you get to disputes issues, that's a skill that has to be tried out. And you won't always get it exactly right, but as you kind of do it a couple more times, you perfect your own style in terms of how you can work those.
Some great points in there. I think what I really picked up on, what you were talking about there, what works for someone may not work for another person. And so you got to offer a range of training, and how you train in person, computer-based, some of the courses you attend in person, things like that. And you just hit on something that we have used before, and so I'm going to go take an action, and that's really the alternate dispute resolution. And then a lot of those, I think you do some scenarios and role playing. But that's a great input for us, Chuck. I think that's often overlooked in helping with situational leadership and things that you need to do, and have all of, sometimes that can be a bit stressful, and that's a lot of times where we are in our real lives as supervisors. So thanks for the great input there. So I'm going to go act upon that one. So let's move to teleworking, and what this has done for your team, what's worked, what hasn't, and what do you see going forward?
Okay. And I think I alluded to this before, but we got to try telework out because they were working our facility area for the mold. Yeah. So it was 1 week where we had to evacuate the office. LPS is about 400 folks. So we had a trial run on it before the COVID situation. There was some learning in terms of IT infrastructure. Not everybody had laptops. Not everybody had the proper, cables and mice, and how in terms of the way they wanted to work at home. So we were able to kind of adjust fire before then. We did set up a kind of an IT triage because, keeping folks up with the IT was paramount. So we protect our IT folks and kind of rotate people in a secured way so they can get to the IT and get everybody back up and running. So big shout out to my OM staff and then my IT to kind of keep all of us going every single day. So that became a big lesson learned. Me personally, it was new apps, the Zoom app, the CVR apps. Those were all learned as we kind of went along. I will say on the CVR, the General Bunch had one of, I think it was a global strike, AIP, And I didn't know it was CVR only until like the night before. So big shout out to my deputy, Lieutenant Colonel Clough. He stayed up with me in the evening. I set up my account, and lo and behold, I was ready to go the next day. Nothing like having a great wingman to help you out through that. But I will say, so we did that in my workplace life, and it actually went over to my personal life.
Okay.
So I think last time I talked to you, I told you my son was getting married.
Yes. Yep.
They actually got married, and we had.
Congratulations. Yep.
So I got a new Darnell lieutenant. So there's 2 Lieutenant Darnells now in the Air Force, and they got Albuquerque, and we've got to use telework, social media as part of that because not all the family could go. So we had, including the pastor and the photographer, just 8 people, and we still got the state or the game warden came up to us and gave us additional guidance on how to separate, even though we were out in the wilderness, but they still found us out there and gave us additional pointers to make us legal relative to New Mexico. So we videotaped it for the rest, or did it live. We streamed it live, so that the lessons I learned in the in the Air Force have now applied to my personal life, which allowed us to stream and share that experience with the rest of the family. So I went from just barely being able to get on in time to my family thought I'm an IT specialist now.
Specialist. Wow.
That's which is far from the truth. But I think we've learned new tools, and it's kind of changed us in terms of what we can do now. So I think as we're moving forward in the future, I think this will be part of our culture in terms of the way we'll move forward on. I will say with the LPS, there is I have to allow a certain amount of engineers to come in because we do the material MRBs where the engineers actually have to go out, verify the part's still good. But we still have a small contingency, about 5% of us that are there on a daily basis supporting the depot. And I just want to compliment them. When we first shut down and they stood up maintenance, they just volunteered naturally. And so I wanted to give them a big shout out. They were willing to step in there and go into work no matter what the situation to maintain the engines for the Air Force. So just a great organization for us in terms of it. They're willing to learn telework, they're willing to overcome the virus situation, and they're brave in terms of when they need to step in no matter what the situation is. So just love the LPS folks in terms of what they do and what we've been able to do moving forward.
Well, I think they've got a great leader in you, and I think you've made them follow the same passion that you have for the mission. So, and a shout out from me to that team too, because a lot of unknowns, and none of us had ever been through anything like that. So they did what they needed to do to get the mission done. So that's a great couple great teleworking stories there. So, Chuck, did you have a favorite food during teleworking? Did you eat the same thing for lunch every day, or like my husband or something,
As most of the folks that ever work with me know, I'm a big Diet Mountain Dew and protein bar eater. I'm not a connoisseur of foods, but I have to admit I didn't really change that.
Okay.
It might be possible that I'm consuming even more Diet Mountain Dew. So I know that those that have worked with me don't think that's possible, but we'll grade it at the end. We'll grade it.
Okay. Okay.
No change in terms of food intake.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, Ben, who I have talked to before you, he had some COVID pounds. He said he gained from baking bread. So anyway, but I guess if you're drinking Diet Mountain Dew, you're good there. So.
Well, I will say I'm going to do the virtual marathon too.
Oh, great. Yeah. Air Force Marathon, right?
I am. So the Air Force Marathon, I encourage other people that you got different levels that you sign up. You can get a medal out of it. And I even talked to my wife, my son, he's in it with my new daughter-in-law. I almost want to call her fiance. And then my brother. So we're gonna do the virtual across the board. So we're looking forward to September.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm beginning to practice.
Yeah. You got a couple of months there. No problem.
I think so.
Yeah. So Chuck, if there was one thing I could do for you, what would it be?
I actually asked this question to my branch chiefs, and they as we're moving towards, a lot of folks are excited about the no tiering.
Yep.
They know that there's a lot of discussions occurring within the functional community and with yourself. They don't get to hear that. So one of the things they offered is more understanding, because we know that they're moving the tierings, but each functional community is starting to put together the guidelines, make sure the expectations are properly set. We just don't hear that as well as the senior leaders' discussion. So they just like to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So great question or great input from you, because if you haven't seen it, Sherri Artuso and I did a first of many, actually 11 podcasts we're going to do on this subject. And we're going to do them from a center perspective. Now you will hear some of the when we talk about some of the career paths, what that looks like under the functionals, but I really focused on this from the overarching center perspective. So I think that's why we're going to communicate this. We're going to go in these podcasts. We'll have, I just met with the team today. And so I think we've got a good plan laid out there. And we're going to have our next podcast will be from John Sly. And John, if you know this, John led a special team for me as we looked at what does it mean not to have tiers. So I'm looking forward to these podcasts. And it's not going to be me. It's not going to be me and Sherri. It's going to be different people at different levels. And I'm really excited. We're going to talk about things that, as I said in the video with Sherri, that I felt like we didn't do a very good job communicating the first time. And that wasn't that we weren't. This is the evolution, and I know I overuse that, but that's really what this is, an evolution of this ACT demo program. And so I want to have people participate in some of the pay pools. We even talked about some of our material leaders, our SMLs participate on the pay pool. So we're going to continue to evolve this. I mean, just because we've gone to the no tiers, but I really want to focus on the areas that I think we didn't do a great job at times communicating. We said, hey, take the CCAS training, but we're going to talk about the career path development. We're going to talk a lot about compensation. We're going to talk about just some of the eaches of ACT demo, classification, all kinds of things like that. So hopefully that will give your team what they need. And if it doesn't, we're going to keep at it. So anyway, look forward to the release of the videos. They're going to be coming soon. So thanks for that great input, and thanks for the team. Really want to get at this, and that's my goal this time. So anyway, well, Chuck, I do have to say that's like the best looking office that I've seen at home. It looks so official. I feel like you're in like the third floor of the Pentagon there with the OSD office or something. So that's a great office. So.
It's a good office. It doesn't look that well all the way around. I'll just share that. But
little. Did you put up that paneling this weekend or something?
There, but I positioned the camera just so.
That's perfect.
I did move my Air Force banner behind me, so.
That's a great banner there. So, oh my gosh, you get my best office vote there. So anyway, well, thanks, Chuck, for spending some time today and going through your career and what's worked for you. Clearly, you are a remarkable leader, and I look forward to seeing where your career is going to take you next. So I wish you all the best, and thank you for what you're doing and all the propulsion team there at Tinker and here at Wright-Patterson. They've got some great leaders. So until we meet again, or an engine session or something like that, thank you and take care, and have a good rest of your day. Over here.
You too, man. Thank you very much. Bye now.
Okay, here we are. We're back after the 4 interviews, the videos, and I hope everybody enjoyed them. Maybe you had to watch them a couple different sessions, but anyway, I hope you enjoyed them as much as I did. So as I said, I have John and Sherri with me, and let's talk about what we heard in the 4 interviews. And I'll look to all of you and give me some feedback, some things that we took away that we want our supervisors to think about. So John, I know you're getting ready to leave us here and ending an amazing career as a staff judge advocate. So anyway, your expertise is always valued, particularly when we deal with, leadership and all kinds of things with civilian employees. So thoughts from what you heard?
I think the point that struck me most was Ms. Owens' conversation about how tired her EMR folks have been. And since I swim in the same sea often as those folks, I can appreciate that. And I wonder what we can do individually and collectively to help make what is often a difficult job a bit easier. And I'm typically looking at or thinking about preventive or proactive issues. And obviously, if we had fewer disciplinary problems, then her EMR folks wouldn't be as tired because they wouldn't be so overworked.
Exactly.
And that's easier said than done. But I think that good leadership, effective leadership, consistently applied, is that best preventive medicine. And whether it's in the vein of helping our subordinates take the best advantage of the training they receive, or it's in the day-to-day almost unnoticed mentoring that good leaders provide. Those are the things that help prevent disciplinary issues.
Exactly.
And those are the things that ideally we would do anyway.
Right.
Thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sort of the, in that light of what can we do, what can supervisors do to help, alleviate some of that, oh my gosh, I have this situation with an employee. I think certainly the mandatory supervisory training and some of the other training and tools out there that we have online as far as coaching and mentoring, certainly to make sure that everybody is at least familiar with the EMR, LMR fundamentals.
Right.
And some of the things, that you learn from a resource or a training class, it really doesn't, hit you as a supervisor until it becomes reality. And then it's like, oh boy, so you're picking up the phone, which is always best to catch anything up front, even if you question something with an employee, just to be able to, resolve as soon as possible.
Right.
But a lot of times, I think too, just to, as you engage with EMR and have that collaborative partnership with them, or even reach out to a mentor or your supervisor or leadership above you as a supervisor, ask them for advice and almost what would you do in this scenario, and try to get a pretty good understanding before kind of the reality hits you. So just kind of being more of that proactive state versus the reactive when it becomes reality.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you made a really good point.
Yeah.
That is, we don't do these things alone.
Right.
And we always have people around us who have experience. And I think we heard each of the people in the videos talk at least implicitly about that reality, that there are good people around, helpful people, knowledgeable people, and that when we reach out and we do exactly what you said, Sherri, we end up, I think, with better results, and that's better outcomes when there are disciplinary issues, more likely to resolve things at a lower level, and of course, less work for overworked EMR.
Right.
Yeah, I think those are great. We're not alone in this. You as supervisors are not alone. We want to help you.
Right.
And I think that's some great
Exactly.
takeaways.
Mhm.
So I know back a little bit on Kathy's interview, just as she talked about kind of going into the teleworking because of COVID and how tired her people were, and it kind of gave them an opportunity to take a deep breath, I guess. And I worry about that too, and about just our workforce and having an opportunity to do that. So I learned a lot from listening to her and her video. So thoughts on some other areas that we heard from the others?
Yeah, I think Miss Brown's video where she was talking about, the center and valuing diversity of experience.
Yeah.
As we, dive into, various aspects of diversity inclusion and what that means in various aspects of our job, professionally and in our personal lives. Her specific question on diversity of experience, really kind of made you think of, are we articulating and sharing what that means to the workforce, and what opportunities are out there? Because if you think about diversity of thought, diversity of experience, diversity of your education, your background, all of that, what that means and how beneficial that is to have a team that doesn't all think the same,
Exactly.
So rotations, when we talk about that diversity of experience, when you think about people moving around, even if they stay within their functional expertise, their functional lane, of course there's opportunity to cross flow. But even if they stay in the functional area, moving around to various other locations, other program offices, different levels of the organization, that employee is learning that depth and breadth of experience, which is beneficial both from a mission execution standpoint as well as a personal and professional growth. And then as the person moves to yet another assignment, they're bringing what they've learned from one program office, those best practices, and then sharing that, transferring that knowledge. So they're just kind of, sharing that diversity of thought and spreading that diversity of thought. So I thought it was a good, topic to bring up as we start thinking.
Exactly. John, on thoughts? I know this is a current topic out there now.
I agree with Sherri. Jennifer brought up the idea of diversity in an inclusive way, that it's not just the categories of people we often think of. It's far beyond that. It includes the different ways of thinking, and often those ways are subtle, but they're very real, and they do add a lot of value. I mean, they're invaluable to us doing what we're supposed to be doing. And yes, the issues we have faced with diversity and inclusiveness are really front and center right now, as I think they should be, because they help us, they give us a really good opportunity to deal with them in a deeper way, and by doing so, to drive real and lasting change.
Exactly.
And put into reality what we often talk about doing.
Exactly. Yeah. I know, just looking back at the questions, and all four of them have very different careers, entered the government very differently. But I think there was a common theme that all had good leaders, mentors, and supervisors along the way. And that's something that I've, have really thought about, why I continue these supervisor all calls, even if I have just a handful of people out there listening. But the more we can just plant the seeds, and then others plant the seed for others, I think it keeps growing. And so I think that made me feel good. I mean, I know a lot of us probably have not as great stories at times, but I felt all four of them talked about, and why those good mentors, good supervisors had helped them get where they are today. Any comments there, or particularly things stood out for any of the interviews? So I could think of a couple.
Oh, right. And to that point, sometimes even if we've had not the best supervisor or mentor, as that's a growth experience in and of itself, because, as an employee, it's a two-way, conversation, I think, to have, just to make sure that, you've got that, you have that dialogue. And then also, to that point, it sort of reminded me of some recent senior leader conversations about mission execution and growing people and their careers, and we shouldn't think of it as two different things.
Exactly.
Right. And it just goes, to the point that we all are here for one thing, executing the mission of the center. And whether you're in a functional, whether you're in a PEO, and any functional, we're all here, moving, rowing in the same direction to our goals and mission. And so I think it's important that, the PEO, the PEOs themselves, they're also directors.
Yes.
And, down through the SMLs, MLs, and any level of leadership and supervisory, of course they have mission execution responsibilities, but also as leaders, you're like boots on the ground with that employee.
Yes.
And so you are a huge part, and we ask a lot. That's asking a lot of our supervisors to do both.
Exactly.
But they go kind of hand in
They
hand.
do,
so.
and I sometimes wonder when our supervisors say, "Oh, I need to take a little bit of extra time with this individual, but I got to get this mission done," and how you balance it is tough.
Yeah.
Kind of goes back to maybe some of the things. Oh my gosh! If anybody's found the recipe for that one, let me know. But so yeah, I it's something I don't want to let go, and continue to have conversations in that area. It's when we bring you on as leaders and our supervisors, we're asking a lot of you. These are tough jobs, and which kind of is a good subject to lead in. How good of a job do we do at the training? And we get emails all the time on, oh, you guys, I wish you had this course, or I love that course. What are your thoughts there? I know you and I have bantered back and forth on some of our classes. So
yeah, that is one of those things. So if you would look out of all of the resources, and there are a ton of resources. So is it a matter of that we are not communicating and pinpointing to things that that we're hearing, and it's like, okay, well, we think this group of training will be helpful. And so we have established the LCMC Learning Resource Center, which really we stood up. We had a plan to stand it up, and we just went at a faster pace.
Accelerated that plan.
Right, because of COVID, because it's like we need to put the resources out there of how to work in a virtual team, coaching and mentoring and working in this virtual environment. But also certainly we've added a lot of resources. So there is that, difference of, the training opportunities that we provide versus, learning and learning experiences. So there's definitely a difference there. I will say I think it was Kathy Owens' interview talking about the mandatory supervisory training, and a lot of people going to that. While beneficial, but it's like I just felt like I was missing something.
Right.
AFMC is looking at and we've got curriculum developers and the subject matter experts to bring all of the best practices together and come up with a new, I believe it's going to be a 3-day course that touches on a lot and brings a little bit more of the tactical, almost like real life scenario based peer-to-peer discussions. So I think it'll be beneficial. I think it'll be launched in beginning of 2021. But we certainly have the supervisory survival workshop, skills workshop, and that brings a lot of content and interaction too. So we have talked about that a lot, and I think it's probably on us to make sure we're keeping that in the forefront.
I think that's true. I don't want to be stagnant on our training.
Right.
And I think, remember Jennifer's point talked about maybe the online training doesn't do as much for her as what she's got in some of the other ways. So I thought that was a good data point. I know from your standpoint, John, thoughts on the trainings?
Yes, I think it's important that we keep in mind that training is always a beginning. It's never an end.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
One of the, I think you both made the really very true point that your job as a supervisor, your task as a supervisor is to take care of both the people working for you and to get the discrete tasks accomplished. There's not a dichotomy between those two. It's both and, not either or. And that may mean that we as supervisors have to be more familiar with the content of this training. So, because again, the training is a beginning for those people who attend it. The end comes when they return to the workplace, and we as supervisors ensure that they are taking the tools they picked up from this training and applying them so that they do learn for real,
Right.
as opposed to just having book
Right.
learning, or worse,
Right.
as opposed to just ticking a box.
Right.
So,
Right.
yes, and we do have a lot of good training. The training you mentioned, which I don't recall is the same as the one that Gina Bojan does.
The supervisory
Survival
survival
kit.
skill
Yeah.
workshop.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, those are really good. And I think those kinds of homegrown efforts show us that some of the other training isn't as robust as it needs to be. And the fact that people have taken the initiative to create better courses like hers and others, I think is a really good sign. And again, it's up to the supervisors, to us, to make sure that the people we send to those courses learn from them by applying what they
Right.
picked up on a daily basis.
Right.
Mhm.
Right, right. Well, let's go kind of in the final bucket of questions that I asked, and that's really how's teleworking been going for all four of them and their organizations? And I think we heard a little bit of different things here. Kind of a fun part, what's their favorite teleworking story, and I think you saw some of those, or favorite teleworking food. I think it was Ben that talked about, was it the COVID 15 or something like
Yeah,
that? I forget it.
quarantine 15.
Quarantine 15. So, but I guess Ben needs to throttle back on the bread baking or something like that. And I think we heard Jennifer, of course, Taco Tuesday, and we still got to get over there for Taco Tuesday. And then Kathy, her, I think spaghetti or meatballs. And then, of course, Chuck, after my own heart, his soda and energy bars. So, but kind of fun stuff aside, what are we taking away from this teleworking? I know we are thinking hard about this going long term. I don't know that we have all the answers, and a lot of focus, particularly with the command, and I get a lot of questions in this area, but how do we go forward? Even as COVID may, the effects of it may die down over time or something like that. How do we carry this new environment forward?
I don't have all the answers, of course.
Oh, why you don't? I thought that's weird. Oh.
Part of the answer is I think that we're going to have to get back together in person, socially distanced, minding all the rules, of course, on a more routine basis, if only to put actual eyes on each other.
Yep.
Because I don't think we can sustain the kind of social fabric that we need to sustain in our organization to keep the trust intact, to increase this trust, the cohesion, those things, those intangibles that we have to be an effective organization.
Exactly. I worry about that, and I'm sure all of you out there are worried about that too. Touching, as you said, in person with your organization, with those that are maybe newer to your organization. Are there some long-term negative effects that we'll realize? I don't know. What are you thinking, Sherri? So
Yeah, and I can't count. I mean, there are new people to the DP home office
Right.
that I've never met. Since
Right.
probably 5 or 6. in person, meeting. So there, there, of course, there's outreach from the various tools, that we now can use, Zoom Gov and CVR and that sort of thing, call somebody on the phone, etc. But still, you kind of wonder that team cohesiveness and just the morale boosting, the wingman, that
Exactly.
culture, that if one employee has a problem, that another one in the next door division across the hall, they have connected because they've shared whatever experience. Are they staying in touch, where before they ran across the hall, hey, do you want to walk down and get a soda so I can
Exactly.
so you
Have a chance
you
to
do
talk. Yep.
wonder about that piece of it.
Yeah. And so just for all of you supervisors out there, all of the leadership across the center is thinking about what do we want teleworking to look like for LCMC going forward. And I know you're personally working with the command and some of the constraints and things that we've realized during this. So I don't think we have all the answers for you out there yet, but it's something that we're thinking a lot about. A lot of goodness too, I think, and people took an opportunity. Maybe we're all better at IT than we used to be or something. I was horrible to begin with, so I mean, if I can move up a notch or two, I'm okay, So.
Yeah, my arsenal of electronics is
Right.
grown.
We had to buy extension cords to run all of our additional electronics that we were working. So anyway, but and then I wrapped up about the one thing, if I could do something for them, and of course we're thinking a lot about that in the areas of back on the diversity in our leadership ranks and act demo and all kinds of the things. And if you've not seen our whole campaign and series on act demo, been sending out the emails, I highly encourage you to listen to that, because there's a lot of good stuff out there. But I know we're going to work on all of that, and I don't know, any closing thoughts that you have, and thoughts from you, Sherri?
Yeah, I think overall, like you said, with the remarkable leaders and these all calls, I mean it wholeheartedly. When I listen to them, I listen, to these four individuals. I take away something every single time.
Yes.
I think it was Chuck, who's the Diet Mountain Dew and the protein bar. I'm like, that's me. But above and beyond just the food intake, I learn something from them each and every time. So I hope others do too. Yeah. So I would, I think it's valuable and certainly would encourage, to continue them.
Yeah. John?
Like you picked up on some common themes. I think the thing I want to highlight is that these are people who are doing the work.
Absolutely.
We all have to do our own work. The good idea fairy is not going to do it. Waiting until tomorrow or the next day isn't going to do it. We all have to do the work. And when we do that, and particularly when we do it smartly, really good things happen. And that's what we all want.
Yep, we get the mission done.
Right.
So I so much enjoyed this, and to Ben and Jennifer and Kathy and Chuck, opportunity for you to share about your career and your experiences with us. And as Sherri said, we learned a lot from you. To all of you, all the other supervisors out there, an opportunity to meet four individuals that you may have never crossed paths with without us introducing them to you through our Remarkable Leadership series. So if you have any follow-up questions or thoughts, please email me, reach out to us. We love your feedback, and hopefully we can get back to an environment where I'm out there at locations doing our supervisor all call. But until then, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I know we did. And again, thanks for everybody that participated. And John, just a shout out to you. I couldn't think of a better honor than kind of do this as you close out your career. And thank you for all that you've done for us.
And
so,
thank you.
Yep,
Thank you.
yep. Sherri, we'll continue on, and we'll do all the things. Got a lot on our plate,
Yep.
but to take care of our supervisors and all of our folks out there.
Absolutely.
So thank you for joining us today, and I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did.